Alrighty, folks. Today we are talking the 2026 FIDE qualification cycle for the next candidates tournament to then qualify for the World Championship match. We just finished 2024 not that long ago, and we have the first qualifier to the candidates, which of course was Fabiano Caruana, who got in by winning the 2024 FIDE circuit. So we're going to talk about the whole cycle. Let me just remind folks how people get into the candidates. There's a couple different ways, but there's one spot for the 2024 FIDE circuit that was just decided. We'll talk about that if it seems like a good system or not. There's going to be one more spot for the 2025 FIDE circuit, which is already ongoing. Then after that, there's two spots that go to the FIDE Grand Swiss, the open event, three spots that go to the FIDE World Cup, which is also happening in 2025. And um, that's it, I think. That's it. Yeah, they got rid of the rating spot. They got rid of the uh,
Kostya,
challenger spot with the
they got the
loser of the
rate.
world championship match.
There's the rating spot. What are you talking about?
Oh, is there a rating spot?
Yeah,
Oh,
okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
One spot, one rating spot. I missed it. It was on the page two. Thank you. Page two. One rating spot, which they changed, so it's now a 6 month average rating from August 2025 to January 2026.
Right. So, yeah, different. And I'll say a couple things. So, 2024 circuit, 2025 circuit, then these two tournaments that were a little not so hot on, FIDE Grand Swiss and the Chess World Cup, and then the highest rating average from August 2025 to January 2026. Um, I'm going to just start with a detail that I think is really interesting. So, Naka hasn't been playing like at all. And in my head, that was all about, just he's streaming and he doesn't want to do it. And that might be part of it too. But here's the fine print on this highest average rating, which is really interesting. So, this player, it's going to be the average rating from February 2025 to January 2026. And that person has to play, excuse me, August 2025 to January 2026. But that person must play, must play 40 games between February 2025 and January 2026. So that means that what we're going to start to see is Naka is going to have to come out and battle for 40 games, which is more games than he's played in a very long time. But that's his easiest path to qualification. He just has to hold his rating, basically, and then he makes it.
And Jesse, you said highest average rating. Is it all the monthly ratings averaged together?
Exactly, right.
Right.
So it's like 16 rating lists or so, or maybe 18 to 20 rating lists averaged together, huh?
Well, August 25 to January 26, so that's, not that many. But they have,
And the other thing
A
that
year and a
helps
half.
Naka is also that it's like, well, the rating spot is like the last. So it only comes after we already have a qualifier from the Grand Swiss
right.
and from the World Cup. And so Fabi's already qualified.
Hmm.
There won't be a FIDE Circuit qualifier yet, I think. But basically, some players might have already qualified that could be competition for Naka for the rating spot.
But if I
Exactly.
understand it correctly, his current rating is super high. So if we were looking at it from a gaming the system perspective, it would make sense for him to play his 40 games in the last 2 to 3 months if he wanted to reduce the risk.
No, he just has to do the 40 games. I don't think it doesn't when you talk about risk. If he
Well,
did
I mean,
it,
he would average in 2,800 for every month until he played those games.
but
So even if he
remember,
tanked
okay,
the
but
games, he would have a high average rating.
let me just be clear. So he can play the games between uh, February, so basically now, to January 26th.
Yeah.
But the lists themselves are only August 25 to January 26.
Oh, the lists only start at 20. I assumed the
Right.
list had already started in 2024. I kept
Right.
mishearing you. I apologize.
Right. Right. Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. He can't stack it too much. It's not super easy to game.
Right. And by the way, I think there's a huge improvement over last time. There was all
Mhm.
kinds of gaming the system that happened. It was really terrible. So I think this is a
Right.
big improvement.
And it
Yeah,
also
clear
says at
activity.
least 15 games in any of the six consecutive rating lists, which I think means at least 15 games within that 6 month period.
Mm. Mhm.
So
So
you
you
have to
can't
play a
like,
certain number of games. You have to space them out,
yeah.
and it's an average of a few rating lists.
Hmm.
I think it makes sense to, from a gaming the system, to try to do it on the early side, because if the milk goes bad, then you have a chance to you have a chance
To
to
play
go for
more.
it. Yeah.
Right. And if it goes well, then you can sit on it more.
Right.
Yeah.
You have more time. That's interesting.
Seems they've
Uh,
definitely improved it. I imagine whatever you come up with is somewhat gameable, but I don't see like an immediate glaring hole like I usually do in what FIDE does. So,
Well, I think it's also just fun because it's going to force Naka to play. And I
mhm.
assume he'll probably be playing these things that we'll also be talking about today, right? The Grand Swiss, World Cup, and the parts of the FIDE circuit, because he can qualify through those as well. I don't think he plays enough to qualify for the 2025 FIDE circuit. He would have to totally change his modality, right? He would be having to play all the time to win that thing, and he's not going to do that. But the other ones,
yeah,
I'm
for
sure
the
he'll play.
circuit, you need like 7 major events, and like two of them have to be open tournaments. So yeah, it's quite a feat to try and get in through the circuit.
And as Fabi discovered, man, you know, you these guys are tough. Fabi just lost 20 points, you know, and that's going to happen to you when you're playing these Indian kids, buddy. It's going to be rough.
Um,
Yeah. So that I think that's real exciting for me as a fan. Arjun also lost a ton of points recently, even though he beat Gukesh in their head to head. But I think Arjun is a good pick for winning that 2025 the FIDE circuit.
Yeah, most of the year it looked like he was going to win the 2024 one.
Right.
yeah, he was very close. And it feels like he has a lot of chances. Like, I don't know, his style kind of makes him capable of just winning anything. So including the circuit, but also like Grand Swiss, World Cup. I feel like, yeah, he could easily get in through those options as well. People were criticizing a lot, like the FIDE circuit, especially the top players, at the beginning of last year. But one of the things we want to talk about is like now that it's over, do we feel like it was a good circuit or not? So just to
Yeah.
remind people, Caruana was the
Wait,
winner, but then
one
Arjun
one
was,
second though, Kostya. We
yeah.
just explained sort of the rating spot, but did we say whether we like it or not before we move on to the next spot?
Yeah, I thought it's like,
Are
yeah, I
we
thought we liked.
are we favorable with it? Are you guys
I
okay with the rating spot? Should
I
there be
think
more?
I would be happy if if they were to do two, because
Do even two like that?
the other things that they're doing, like when we'll talk about it, these the Grand Swiss and the World Cup, you're gonna
Mhm.
get randos in there. That's just the way it's gonna go. And yeah, I don't want a rando in that
Right.
tournament, you know.
And you also don't want somebody who has a high rating and just didn't play this year. So they've kind of addressed that. And with that out of the way, you guys like the rating spot.
Yeah, ratings. At least the way they're doing it is so
Yeah,
much better than last time.
Yeah, I
it's
think I
definitely
might
better
even have,
than third place World Cup spot for sure.
yeah, I think I would also, like Jesse, probably have an appetite for two spots like this, given what the constellation is. All right, I'm sorry for cutting you off, Kostya. Give us
No, no worries. So like
the
here are the
spiel.
winners of the circuit, right? Caruana first, Arjun was very close in second. Then we had Noterback in third. And then Ruja was fourth, a little bit behind. Gukesh fifth. And then the rest of the field was like not really close, but we had like Pragnananda, Merzen's in there, Yakubov, but these players not really close to the top. It was really like Caruana, Arjun, and Noterbeck. I feel like were well, they're the only ones that even play like seven like official events of the top players that even
Oh,
counted.
can I say one
Um,
important thing about that, Kostya? I saw
yeah.
people making that comment about how basically nobody even played seven events, so that means that nobody was really trying and it wasn't really successful, right? It's that number it's showing you for the players is how many people successfully scored points in those events. You could play in 7 or 8 events, but if you don't place in the top 8, I think, you don't get any points for it. So it'll show up, for example, Gukesh shows up as having 4 events, but he played
Mhm.
more than that. For example, he played the Sinkfield Cup, he made 9 draws, and they didn't provide any reward for those 9 draws, which I think, reasonable. But That's the important thing to know, I think.
Yeah, so to me it looks like a pretty good list actually. It was like the most active players. Origin, of course, was like just on fire throughout the year. Caruana did really well, Noterbeck, and yeah, I don't know. Maybe it could have been better, but I to me I like this more again than the World Cup. The World Cup spot.
Well, and I want to say what I don't like about it, okay? I think I like it better than the World Cup, but what I don't like about it is that um, it's impossible for the fans to follow. And there's like this hectic math equation that you got to do to figure out how many points a player gets. There's all kinds of tournaments that a person can play in. New tournaments can be created, as we saw last year, for a player to qualify. Like if India wants to create a tournament for their people to have a chance, they can do that because it's just based on FIDE rating average and stuff. So it's hard for the fans. It's very hard for me to follow. It's almost like we need chess numbers out there to give us. He's our stats guy, and he could give us like a percentage chance of X player making it because otherwise it's very hard to follow what's going on. And then, like we were talking about last year, it's just like, well, at the end of the year, now we'll look in and see who's there. Otherwise, we weren't really following it. So it's hard to see for the fans what's at stake during the year because it's so hard to follow.
Yeah, it's not clear. It's not obvious like how many points you get per tournament and which tournaments count and where you have to place and
Hmm.
all that stuff. So yeah, I'd agree for the fans, it's not the easiest thing to track.
But let's say this, they tried to make I'm speaking too much in Fide's favor today. They tried to make like a site, with like regulations and lists of tournaments and like a leaderboard.
Hmm.
I mean, in theory, you could just read the leaderboard and it does tell you where things are at the moment. It's to me the UI is like I almost want to say good. Like you can just like click the drop down, see which events they played, how many points they got at each event. It's like fascinating. You see that Fabi got all his points like right at the end of the year, right? US championships in late October and then two open tournaments in St. Louis back to back, very quick, right? He scored a huge number of
Well,
points, like
one
right
was in
there, November,
Charlotte
December.
and they weren't
Sorry,
both in
US
St. Louis.
Masters is in Charlotte.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. But it was like in quick succession, right? Like he played one and then the next day he was playing the other one. Pretty
Right.
much, no?
Yeah, they were back to back.
Yeah. Okay, so I didn't even realize that everybody traveled in that time. Um, but yeah, I mean, he went like on a tear there at the end of the year,
But like,
and
imagine you're a
you
fan,
can kind of
say,
see it.
let's say you're a fan of Prague or Mersin or something, and
Hmm.
you're like, how do I follow my person's chances for
Hmm.
making it through this FIDE circuit?
Right.
I have
What
no
you can't
idea.
do, I see your point, Jesse. What you can't do is predict what are they going to get for the next tournament, right? Like, let's say Fabi wins the St. Louis Masters, and then your dude goes and plays some other tournament the next month, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, what are the chances that my dude surpasses Fabi by getting first place, second place, or third place at this next tournament? You would be hard pressed to calculate that on your own. You would have to call up a mathematician to give you the scoop.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I hear you on that. Um, I also
Yeah,
think the
I get what
math
you're
is a little
saying.
bit off.
It's not the hardest thing to follow. Like you go to the site and you can just see like who's leading,
Yeah,
how many points they got. It's not easy to follow from tournament to tournament. Like you're following some tournament and yeah, like the standings are what they are and you don't know like, okay, what does the player need? You have to score more points in the circuit or what. It's just only at the end of the year does it kind of start to become clear, like which players. But I don't know. Last year there was like updates throughout the year. They're like, oh, Arjun's leading, or Gukesh is doing well in the circuit, Fabi's doing it. So there was like some updates. So I feel like we kind of got a bit of um, tracking on that as the fans.
yeah. I think that they could fine tune their math actually a little bit because when I look at the points and stuff, I do feel that some of them don't fully make sense. And I think one of the biggest problems maybe is how much they maybe one of the simplest things that I don't feel comfortable with is how big a difference it is based on tie breaks. Like if people finish like first through eighth place, the first place finisher might get like 20 to 25 points in a high rated tournament, and the eighth place guy might get, 2 points. Like for example, a big tournament this year was the Superbet United in Croatia, right?
Mhm.
2753 average rating. And depending what place you got, the points could vary pretty dramatically, I think. Let's see. Well, this is weird. It says that Gukesh got 14 points for second place, and Fabi. Okay, and Fabi got 21 points for first place. So
Mhm.
50% more. By the way, they had the same score. Then you've got um, Prague and Fallujah were in that tournament. They also tied for first place with these guys. So let's see, like Prague for the super bet, he got 14 points. So they only gave a bonus 7 to Fabi, maybe? It's a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some bonuses for the first place, which yeah, maybe I don't know, may or may not be fair. I think it definitely is meant to like encourage players to like fight for first.
Right. But once
But
they're
yeah, I
tied
agree
for
when they
first,
tie for
that
first.
they're making a 50% difference off of sometimes just Sauna board, whatever tiebreakers, sometimes a blitz game. Honestly, I don't value a blitz game much higher than Sauna born whatever, right?
Right.
But you got a tie at Wake on Zay between Gukesh and Wei Yi last year, I think. And Wei Yi probably won the tiebreak. Prague just won a
Mhm.
tiebreak against Gukesh 2 days ago. That's going to be a big deal. It'll be like a 50% difference in how many points they get after 13
Well,
days of
no,
classical chess with the
on
same
checking
score.
the 2025, Prague got 25 points, Gukesh got 22.3. So
So maybe they've
whatever
changed the
reason,
formula a
yeah,
little bit.
whatever reason they've maybe adjusted it.
Yeah.
Because that seems much more,
Yeah.
that seems closer.
I mean, like that super bet tournament, those guys played a round robin. They came out with one draw and 8 wins after like 9 days, and then somebody gets 50% more points than somebody else. That to me is kind of like a glaring thing, which really does make the difference on the scale of the points that we're talking about here. So I would be more inclined to just average points across tied groups.
So, one of the ways I would judge the success of this format is when I think about who has to be at the tournament. Okay. So, this would be my list. First of all, Magnus isn't going to be there, but Magnus, buddy, you could get that rating spot, bud.
I
You
was
could
gonna
come
say
back.
we should make predictions.
Okay. But this is what I want to say. I would say the five people that I want in there. Okay. First of all, as we have said, Fabi's already in. So, Fabi's in. That's one. Naka, Arjun, Abdu, and Prague. That's my list. That's five people. I think those people have to be in there. If they're not, I'm going to be a little bit upset. Then I feel like the last three spots are kind of wild cards that can be decided. I want to see Ali Reza make a comeback. I don't know what's going on with that kid. It would be cool if Ding made a comeback. Probably not. Maybe Merzen, dude. And Neiman's going to go for it. There's all kinds of people who are
But if
trying to get those
somebody
three spots.
but if somebody had a better year than one of those guys, you wouldn't mind it being somebody a little bit more of an outsider joining the five people you really want.
Well, I want those five. I'm saying for me, the success of this qualification system, those
Yeah.
five people have to be there. And then I don't even care too much. It could be three wild cards of, the quality of whether it's Ding or Neiman or somebody like that.
Well, let me read you the top six from the FIDE Circuit 2024, just as a way of judging how well the FIDE Circuit was
Mm,
able to
okay.
to provide somebody, right? Because imagine they even used the system to pick more than one person, right? Okay.
Mhm.
So here was the list for 2024. Fabi, Arjun, Abdusatorov, Fallujah, Gukesh, Prague. That's 1 through 6 in the
Right.
standings.
Right.
I mean, does that sound like the year to you?
Yeah. I mean, and Mer's in seven, by the way. Mer's in seven.
And Mer's in 7 because they count they made an exception and counted a blitz and rapid event,
which they shouldn't have done, but
which they
okay.
obviously shouldn't do, and that's where he got all his points.
Yeah.
But they no, it's not the. I mean, they counted like the Super United Croatia. It's also rapid and
You're
blitz.
right, they did. Okay, the rule is, if I remember correctly, a rapid or blitz kind of thing has to be over 2,700, and a classical only needs to be over 2,550. The exception they
Mhm.
made for the World Rapid and Blitz was that in theory, all the events have to be done by December 15th.
Mm.
And they allowed the World Rapid and Blitz to be after that. But yeah, they shouldn't be including Blitz and Rapid in the World Championship cycle. Again, nonsense.
I agree. I mean, it's classical chess.
It's classical chess. Have a great Blitz and Rapid World Championship and cycle if you want.
Hmm.
Super, go ahead, do it.
Yeah,
But what's the
please.
point of mixing them? It's so weird.
In any case, I think at least 2024 proves that this produces some, like, it produced a very good list, right? And
Yeah.
2025, I'm sure is going to be good as well. I think the Grand Swiss and the World, that's going to be 5 people for a Grand Swiss and Chess World Cup. 5. And who
And
knows?
yeah,
Who knows who that can be?
But here's where I would fiddle with their list. Like, it's a pretty good list of like the top six, right? But I think the order is slightly wrong. I think Gukesh at number five, like, shows that some math needs to be fiddled with. Because basically,
sure.
what happened to Gukesh was like he tied for first place at 2 tournaments and got like second on like tiebreak, right? And he doesn't play the Blitz and Rapid stuff as much, right? So for him to be fifth place by such a margin compared to Fabi and Arjun. I don't know if Gukesh should have been first, but I mean, I don't think he should have been fifth with that year he had in
But
2024.
did Gukesh play any like big opens last year? Because two of your events have to be opens.
May have played less big opens. That's true.
If he doesn't play rapid, he doesn't play opens. Okay, at some point that's on him. So,
Sure, sure. But I mean, okay, another thing that's slightly weird with the math ghost is, for example, he got less points for winning the candidates tournament
mhm.
than Ali Reza got for winning the Sink Field, the Yawn Fest that people don't even watch anymore, right? And you know, comparable points and like 1 point more than Fabi got for winning the US championships. Like amazing how much of a super tournament the US championship is rated by this system.
Yeah,
I
so this is,
agree.
I mean, really heavily favors the just the average rating of the field, right? Like the top eight. So that's
Yeah.
why, yeah, obviously candidates is more important event, but right, it doesn't really it doesn't take that into account. It's
It
not.
seems they didn't count the Olympiad, which is a little bit odd for FIDE because normally they jump to count their own events, but the Olympiad not having like a clear individual standings, maybe it didn't lend itself to this. Um,
Right.
anyway, I feel like by most standards, Gukesh was like the number one or two performer of last year. So it's just a little bit odd for him to be down at five. But the system is close, right? I mean, with that top six, it's close.
And the other thing fans should be aware of, it's kind of cool, is because Ding got second place at the World Championship, he has a huge leg up. So Fabi won the thing with 180 points, and Ding already has 41 points basically going into this. Now, the kid hasn't played at all since he lost the World Championship, but if he got it together, that 40-point jump, that's a big that's a big amount of points. So he could definitely pull that together. It just has to have
Mhm.
a reasonable year at that point. Yep.
True. Actually, I think Jesse had a very good like starting list in terms of the top five that absolutely have to be in the candidates,
Yeah.
like Caruana, Arjun, Noterbeck, Prague, and Naka.
Yeah.
And then
But I
I
would say with
think,
the asterisk, if Naka plays, I agree with you. If he doesn't play
assuming he
any
plays
games,
and goes for it, yeah, 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 of
then I
course.
would accept him not being there. Like I agree with there being an activity requirement.
And then in terms of the other three, that's kind of interesting. Yeah, so like Farouj is in there. I think like Nepo we haven't mentioned probably is gonna, try to go for it again. Why not? And also feels like Fedoseev has just been winning stuff left and right lately, so
Yeah.
he might get in through some like World Cup or some. But yeah, it feels like there's definitely gonna be some one or two surprise candidates as usual.
Yeah. Maybe Kamer will have a good year. That's always
Yeah.
possible, right? Um,
But the World Cup, I mean, truly anyone can get in. I mean, maybe it's a good thing, guys. Maybe it's a good thing. We were think about how much we're gonna. I mean, it is a bit of a lottery, like the three spots for the World Cup. But at the same time, that's how you get. I mean, I don't like it. I'll be honest.
right. But
I
it's
don't
like
like it. One tournament,
problem with it,
it's
Kostya, is it's
it's
such a lottery and it's three
yeah.
spots that you might not get those five you were talking about, right? When you're thinking about like who's going to be the seventh or eighth spot, and you're like, what if they came from the World Cup? You're like, okay, that will be fine. Who cares, right? But like, where are those five people you mentioned supposed to qualify from, right? Well, like
Hmm. Yeah, I was
one or
wondering
two
about
of them
that.
have to make it through the World Cup, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right, absolutely.
So
I
that
think
means
someone
you
like
need,
Arjun or
yeah,
Noterback or
it
Prague.
means you
Yeah.
need Arjun and Noterbeck to come out on top there, which of course they have a chance at, but
But that's why it's
it
like
could
good
be
that there's
Merzen. It could be
three.
Merzen.
Right.
I think it'd be great if
Yeah.
Merson qualified. I think that kid is really interesting, you know.
Yeah, actually,
Um,
he's pretty cool.
yeah. Um, so
He'd
okay.
be a
Yeah.
compelling candidate, but if you miss out on the five you really wanted, Jesse, because of, Merzen plus, I don't know who else could do it, Shamsidin Volkadov.
It's funny when
Uh,
I think about who else I want in there. I want Ali Reza and probably Merzen. And then there's going to be
uh
some other name, maybe Ding. Maybe it might be cool if Ding got it. And that would just be cool if Ding got it together, because that would show that he
yeah,
bounced back. But
it would be
we'll see.
cool. But I think somebody like Hans or like Kamer have a slightly better chance this year of like making it. I think they've got fair chances of becoming candidates.
Maybe. We'll
But
see.
through which avenue would you expect that to happen? Like Hans, for example, what would be his best shot at the
So it's
candidates?
not, I would say his worst shot right now is the rating spot, right? Like
He's not going to get the
there's
ratings,
there's
buddy.
quite a bit of a gap.
Hmm.
I don't think of him like especially as like a rapid player. So I would think like the FIDE Circuit would be a chance, but for that you need invites to the top tier tournaments that are worth more points, right? Like it's great
Hmm.
that opens are included. I like that the top players have to play a couple opens, but that doesn't mean that the not top players get any shots at round robins yet. Um, so where would you have to get in? I mean, I guess each way of qualifying is a little bit of an outside shot for him. The Grand Swiss is maybe one shot.
I'd say World Cup because
World Cup.
he does have all this like match experience now. He played all those matches last year, which were like
Hmm.
classical and
Oh,
rapid.
and he
So
mixed rapid into them. Yeah. Yeah,
yeah, so it's
maybe.
probably like good practice for World Cup, big World Cup run.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
he's probably gonna play U.S. Championship too. He'll get his chances.
And I feel like he doesn't have weak nerves, right? So there's some people who would have like a slightly harder time at the World Cup. I think he would be pretty solid under pressure.
Yeah. The other elephant in the room, we got to say, I'm thinking about Naka. Of all the people who I could imagine saying, F it, FIDE, I hate you. I'm never doing anything more with you. He's the guy. I mean, Carlson's already saying that, but I can imagine Naka for the reasons of the 960 drama that
Yeah, I
continues to
agree.
just go on and on, that he's the one most I can imagine being like, no, I don't want any part of this. And then, of course, I don't really think that FIDE is going to exclude any of these top players for playing 960, but of course they could. That would throw
Right.
more drama into it as well. Uh,
Right. We've been talking as if everyone were eligible. If FIDE decides that, five of these top 10 players aren't eligible, then it really changes what the
Yeah, we're
qualification
gonna
looks like.
yeah, we're gonna have bigger problems than like three spots.
Yeah.
Cup. But I believe, if we can touch on this for a sec, I believe the latest news is that Freestyle dropped their, we want to call this a world championship thing. At least that's what was like quote
Hmm.
unquote announced. So it seems like they're coming to they're just going to do a big freestyle Grand Slam tour, not try to call it a world championship. And players, it seems like we'll be able to play in both cycles without fear of retribution.
So
I
on the
don't
one
believe
hand, I
any.
think,
I don't believe any of it goes to. They're bad. The blood is so bad at this moment.
yeah.
The feelings are so high that I think for like everybody below Naka and Carlson, they're players. They want to play, but those two guys, I mean, they're just going to be out for blood and making more and more drama. You know.
Yeah.
True, could
Yeah, I
be, could
mean,
be.
Naka makes more money off of people arguing about this stuff than off of actually playing in the events.
Right, right.
So for sure, his incentive is not, or I mean, his most obvious incentive is not for everything to just calm down and be agreed on by everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, okay, at the same time, I think, Naka did go for it last year, right? In terms of
Yeah.
the candidates. I feel like he said he wants to go for the next candidates too, but
Practically speaking, it would be tough because that 40 games, that's quite a few at their level. It's like a certain, it's a bit of a commitment of time. And the freestyle thing is classical chess and it's 5 events.
they should get the freestyle games to count for the FIDE rating 40 games requirement.
It
That
requires
should be
40
the
games.
compromise.
Uh, I mean, I love 960, but I don't think it should count in this world championship cycle myself,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Like, I
Unrated
really,
960 games shouldn't count for the 40 game rating
yeah.
spot. Probably not.
I think only classical FIDE rated games. Sorry, I don't care if it's at a FIDE tournament, but you know what I mean. Like, only classical format, normal chess starting position games
Right.
should have any place in any part of the FIDE classical world championship cycle. So that applies to blitz tournaments, rapid tournaments, Fisher 960, like anything. Like,
Yeah, it seems like a reasonable request.
yeah, it'd be like if the World Cup in soccer couldn't be decided by baseball. You
Hmm.
weren't allowed to use a bat in any of the qualifying events.
Yeah. But so maybe to wrap things up, I am pretty excited for the chess year ahead of us because we've got World Cup, we'll have
Hmm.
Grand Swiss, always exciting tournaments, and then candidates. I mean, I think it's supposed to be like beginning of next year, 2026. Maybe it'll be March or so, but
Mhm.
um candidates is always exciting. And then yeah, Gukesh is just going to be so we're going to get a challenger for Gukesh. He's going to be sitting on the throne.
Mhm.
I feel like
Yeah,
it's fun. It's
I
fun.
like I like the circuit guys. I think FIDE did pretty well, and just a little bit of tweaking of the math, and it would be great. And honestly, you could qualify 2 people this way instead of from the knockout, right? If you wanted to, why not? You could have a couple from the ratings, a couple from this.
Yeah.
Well, the World Cup, I mean, let's just say it should be one spot, right? It should always have been one spot. It was two spots, and then they're like, well, we need to make it the reason they gave for giving out the third spot was like, oh,
Uh-huh.
we need to make the third place match important because the third place match is they're not playing for anything. And it's like,
Yeah.
why don't you make the first place match important? It's
All right.
talking about.
And make the first place match important, right? You could either not hold the third place match or have like a prize difference or
Yeah, I
something.
think
But
yeah,
yeah, I
there
mean,
is.
focus on the
There is.
first place match.
So there's definitely spots to give from the World Cup. Absolutely.
Well, let
Yeah.
me let me ask you guys this. So the problem with this is there's probably going to be some randos, probably honestly probably more than one. Last time we had I would say one. Not to call a boss off a random, but he was not at the level, right? So
Oh, you can call them random.
okay, so how badly did it hurt the candidates tournament that he was there from a competitive or sporting perspective,
Moderately badly.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
if he had won like if
Because
he had
like
won some
Gukesh,
games.
Gukesh partly won the candidates by beating Abasov,
Yeah, dude, playing H6 in that Nimzo
right?
win against him.
Like
What are you
playing
doing?
H6 as black, like,
Uh,
disrespect. I know he said, oh, computer says it's okay, but to me, that's like a disrespect system there.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And mistreating the guy like he's from a different class. And he didn't beat head to head Fabi or the previous candidate Nepo, right? Like, so I mean, I think he played a great candidates tournament. You guys know I'm on his side, so to speak. But yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, I don't think Abasov belonged in that tournament. I think it was kind of bad. And one thing we could say about this FIDE circuit is even if they let 2 or 3 people in off of the circuit, you at least wouldn't get a rando, right, Jesse? I mean, look, you have to like look pretty far down to get a rando.
Well, right. And so I'm looking at my 5 names. Fabi's already in there. Okay.
Yeah,
And then I'm going to get one for rating. Let's call it Naka at this point. But
yeah,
then we think about Erigaisi, Abdu, and Prague.
You
And
would get
only,
them all there.
so only one of those is probably going to get that 2025 circuit place.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
chances that they're going to get hosed from not being able to, win the World Cup or something, that's very high. It's very
Yeah.
high.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's like honestly, it's weird, not to harp on it, but we have this beautiful FIDE circuit, which is like a yearly average of how you perform throughout the top events.
yeah.
And it's like this like very
So
delicate
logical.
like mathematical formula and it produced like a beautiful result of the top players. And we're
Yeah.
giving one spot for that and then three for the one tournament World Cup.
For the World
Yeah.
Cup.
Yeah.
They could give the two World Cup spots, one to a second place in 24 and one to a second place in 25, for example. Done.
Yeah.
Two spots per
Right.
Grand Circuit.
That would make much
It is circuit.
much more sense. It would
Yeah.
be a lot more democratic and global.
Yeah, it could be fine-tuned a little bit on the math. Right now somebody could complain if they finish third by 3 points or something, but overall it looks like it's a really like actually great initiative from FIDE's perspective. It avoids them running a million Grand Prix events and clogging the tournament circuit and instead supports other tournaments by pushing players to go out and play in the tournaments that are already out there, right? Put more good players into those tournaments. I mean, one of the effects of this, Kostya, was like you saw it yourself, right? That like Fabi was playing in these open tournaments in the US. That seemed to be a
Yeah.
really cool thing, right? People
Yeah,
were
I think that
people
was
were
a good
pumped to
effect
have
for
him, right?
sure. Yeah, and I mean the previous year also we saw people joining open events, in December, mind you, to
Right.
get some like last second FIDE. But yeah,
Mhm.
I mean these initiatives, if they push players, I mean that's one of the criticisms towards FIDE is that they're, leveraging just the efforts of normal organizers that they're not really paying to run these FIDE circuit events and then just using those as a qualifier instead of running their own qualifier events. But yeah, I mean I don't know, works out.
It seems, I mean, how much does it hurt? I mean, did it hurt the organizers that Fabi showed up and was like, I'd like to register? I feel like it helped them.
Yeah, no, it's a good thing. But I mean, I'm just saying, like, if FIDE loves to like take credit, but it's like, all right, they didn't organize these tournaments. It's like,
No, I think they actually did something good by stopping organizing their own stupid things and supporting what was already out there in a sense, right? Sometimes less is more.
Yeah, Fide. So the big takeaway here is the circuit thing's kind of interesting, and you need to stop giving 5 places to randos and give another rating spot and probably another to this circuit thing, and maybe make the circuit a little bit easier to follow. That's my takeaway from
Mhm.
today's show.
Yeah, and people will get used to it over time too, right, Jesse? Like
Yeah.
it can make it easier to follow. We could get more used to it. Like I think people could really get behind it.
Thanks for listening. This is a Patreon topic. This topic won the poll. I mean, I think we wanted to do it anyway, but
Yeah.
it was voted on by Patreon. So if you like to vote on future topics, check out our Patreon, and you can also support the show. Thank you very much.